Okay, so the next concept that we are going to start are called functions. What are functions? What are functions? So now what happens, right? So now first I'll give the statement, then I'll tell you why we should go for functions. Okay. And then we will possibly try to understand what is the importance of functions and the other things around it. Okay, so a function is a block. A function is a block that contains set of statements. Set of statements. Okay. Right. So this is a function is a block that contains a set of statements. Right, which means now you must have a question. Why? So if at all, if this is a block, if I equals to 2, right? Here also I have a block of statements. Now what is the statement? What is that I'm saying here? A function is a block of statements. What did I did? Okay, a function is a block that contains set of statements. Right. Now this is also a block which contains set of statements. Yes or no? This is also a block that contains set of statements.
Yes, sir.
Now what is the difference between this and that?
Sir, here we are written multiple statements in one block, sir.
Right. Even there also a function is that contains set of statements or multiple statements. Okay. Now there also I'm say written multiple statements.
Here we are checking the statements.
Right. So ultimately, what is it? This is also a block. This is also what the function also I'm saying it is also a block that contains set of statements. Okay, so both are same. Okay, as per the current statement. Okay, either if or a, whichever contains a set of statements, whichever is the block which contains a set of statements is basically here according to the statement it says function, but then why not this is a function, right? That should be the question you should be asking. Okay, now a function is a block of statement that contains set of statements. Fine. Now what else is the function, right? A function, okay, a function will have a name. A function will have a name. But here, do you have a name? A function will have a name, right? Using the name, we can execute the, use the name, we can execute the statements in that function. Meaning I have written a set of statements and I have named something to it. Okay. Now, whenever I want to execute those set of statements, all I have to do is just call that function using the name as an call a function. Call a function. Now imagine, okay, imagine the scenario where I have come up with a particular product and I have to explain that product to every, let us say you are like 9 people, right? So I want to explain a particular topic. Okay. Now, if at all, if you are now you are located at different places, let us say if at all there was no this online mechanism of explaining stuff. Now, if I had to do that, like, teach each one of you, like, what I should have done, I should have gone to every individual and explain that topic. Then I should go to another individual, explain the topic. Then I have to go to another individual, explain the topic. So I have to repeat myself multiple times.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, what if there is a way where, right, like this, I'm teaching you right now, like all of you have joined and I'm teaching it once and you're all catching the concept, right? So in the similar note, what function does is with the function, I have written set of statements. Now, every time I want to execute, okay, every time I want to execute that statements, I'm going to call that function and execute those statements. Okay. Now, let us say I want to take user input A and user input, like, two integer values, and I have to print the sum of it. How can I do that? Okay, so where were we? Yeah, right. So let us say I'm taking value A and int, I'm going to say input of internal, and B, I'm just going to repeat this, right? So now what all I have to do is I have to print the sum of it. Yes, this is my simple 3 statements. Okay, now I want to do this for multiple numbers. So this is all for one go. You enter some value 10, you enter another value 20. I'm printing 10 plus 20, which is going to be 30. Now I want to execute this set of statements again. Right, in the same file, in the same go, I want to execute the same set of statements again. So what will I do? I'll write the statements again. Yes, this is now 2 times. Now I want to do this operation again. I'll have to repeat this statement again and again and again. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I have to repeat this statements again and again and again. So if I have to execute the sum of 2 numbers entered by user for 100 times, how many times I have to repeat the statements? These 3 statements. I have to repeat them like 300 times.
Yes,
Same
sir.
statement, but I'm repeating 100
Yes, sir.
times.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, and if I'm repeating 100 times for 3 statements, how many lines of code I would have written? 300 lines. These 3 statements, if I'm repeating 100 times, I would have written 300 lines of code. Okay. Now let us see how to implement or avoid this using the functions. Now, what is a function? So function has a particular syntax. Okay, but technically, okay, function is given a name, right? I'm going to name sum to numbers. Okay, this is my function name. And within that, I have written this block of statements. A is equal to some input value. B is equal to some input value. And print I'm saying is A plus B. Okay. Now, what did we say? In a function is a block of statements. A function is a block that contains set of statements, right? Done. And a function will have a name. Have we given a name? Right? And using the name call function, we can execute this set of statements. Right? Now all I have to do is, now whenever I have given this name to this function, now whenever I call this function name, it should execute these three statements. It should execute these three statements. Now all I have to do is I have to call this function. I don't have to repeat the same name. So if I have to execute this again, all I have to do is just call this function. Done. It is going to call and it is going to execute this set of statements. If you want me execute one more time, simple. I'll call the same function name. It will go and execute. So what we are typically achieving here is reusable. So this line of statement, these three statements are reusable. I have given a name to these three statements. I have given a name to these three statements. Now, whenever I use this name, it is going to execute these statements. Whenever I call this name, it is going to execute these statements. So by this, aren't we achieving a reusable factor here? I don't have to repeat. Right now, earlier we had written 300 lines. Now, if I have to execute the statement 100 times, all I have to, how many lines of code I would have written? 100 lines. How many lines did we reduce? 200 lines of code we reduced. So I'm just giving an example with this code reusability. What do we achieve through functions? Code reusability. Write once, execute anytime. Okay. And less maintenance. Less maintenance, code reusability and less maintenance are the primary factors of a function. Now, if I have to reuse, if I have to write a new statement for functions, would be a function. A function is a block. Is a block that contains set of statements that contains set of statements which can be executed, by calling the function name, Okay, here is how the syntax looks like. So we always, whenever you write a function, you have to follow this syntax. You have to write something called def, and you have to name the function. It can be any name. It is just like a variable name. Okay, you can name your function any way. So you have to write your function name and you have to open and close parentheses. So you have to open and close parentheses and followed by colon. And obviously we take 4 spaces statements. Within that we write our statements. Now, if at all, if I have to execute the statements, all I have to do is call that function name followed by parentheses. This function has parentheses, yes, and we have to call the function like this without def. Now, if the function is created using this, right? So here, this is the main syntax. You have to use the term def to create a function. Def means definition, right? Def means definition. Def function name, you have to give the name for that function followed by parentheses, then colon, and you hit and enter, go to the next line, take 4 spaces, indent the block. and then write your statements 1, 2, 3, n, 100, 200 until n, any number of statements you can write within the function. And whenever you are going to call that function, it is going to execute that many statements. It is going to execute all of those statements. The statement can have variables, can have loops, can have if else's, it can have anything within this function. Okay. Function will be given a name. Function will be given a name. Right? Function will be given a name. This name should not collide with any of the variable name or other function name. It has to be unique. It has to be unique. Okay. Right? Whenever we call this function, right, it executes statements defined in function. Okay, function will be given a name, and whenever we call this function, it executes the statements defined in the function. Okay. Using functions, we can achieve code reusability. Using function, we can achieve code reusability. Okay. A function can also take parameters. A function can also take parameters, or you can also call them as arguments. We'll see what these are. A function can also take parameters or arguments. Okay, these are all we'll see as we proceed further. Okay, a function can return values to caller. So I said we can call the function, but it has to, whenever somebody calls, it can also return certain value. It can also return value. Okay, so these are all the function, or these are all the statements that can be used to define a function. A function is a block that contains set of statements which can be executed by calling with the function name, Okay, so the syntax of creating a function is you have to use something called def space, and you give the function name followed by parentheses, and then you can give a colon and go to the next line, take 4 spaces and keep writing your statements. Okay, a function will be given a name, right, using which you can call the name, you can execute the set of statements. A function can be given a name wherever we call this function, it executes the set of statements defined in that function. So you have to call it with the name. Now, using a function, we can achieve code reusability, as in you can write certain statements within the function block, and whenever you call that function, it is going to execute the same set of statements. So which means you don't have to repeat the statements. You write once and you can call n number of times. So that gives us code reusability. Though these two statements, a function can also take parameters or arguments, a function can return value, we will see as we go further.